Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this video. I'm Super McKay, and you're probably here right now from this Reddit post I made a few days ago. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into some of the really cool technical things that were done to pull off this NBC scoreboard recreation all inside of vMix. If there's enough interest, I'm hoping to turn this into a mini-series where I go over a lot of the other really cool concepts as well as graphics that I have personally never seen done in vMix. But anyways, in this video, we're going to be going over our recreation of NBC's most recent Sunday Night Football scorebook. We'll be covering how we designed the scorebook and make it look so similar to the original, some of the advanced GT tile designer concepts that were used, how the score increase ticker animation was pulled off, and finally, we'll be going over some of the more technical stuff, including the source code to the various scripts that were used. The concepts in this video don't just apply to scorebooks, but to pretty much any graphic, so get creative. Before we start though, I'd like to give a quick introduction as well as a shout out to some of the people who helped make all this possible. So hey, I go by Super K or just Mason, and I'm a part of a small esports production and media group called RSPN. We started around 3 years ago with a single vMix license and with the goal of putting on live sports productions like the ones seen on Fox, NBC, and ESPN. We were all in high school doing this just as our passion project, so we had to get pretty creative with our limited resources. It's been about a year since my last broadcast, and since then I've just had all these files just sitting on my PC, so I thought it might be a good idea to make a video covering a lot of the concepts that took me days to figure out. This video is basically the ultimate video that I wish I had 3 years ago when I was starting out. But before we start though, again, I like to give a big shout out to some people. First of all, Hayden, who was our main commentator and basically the one beside me making all this stuff for RSPN. He was the main man doing just he's been there, even though he didn't contribute to every single factor of the media group. He's been there, and he helped motivate all of us to commit an embarrassing amount of hours into this. I also have to give a big shout out to Woofy, who's been alongside me for years, even before Hayden, and has just helped with so much stuff, including productions, doing camera, as well as just like other random things that we ask him to do that he doesn't have to do, but he still does. And I mean, Woofy is been so helpful. And then finally, I have to give a big shout out to all the leagues, including the LFG, VOL, the OFL, the AFL, all these leagues that have let us cover their games and put all of our skills that we have learned and all the graphics to show. Even sometimes when the productions don't turn out 100% like we're supposed to, they stuck with us and they let us continue streaming. And they gave us the opportunity in the first place. And I'm pretty sure by this point, anyone in our group would take an actual job in the live sports production scene. So if anyone watching has a job opportunity, hit me up. I'm your guy. Okay, anyways, let's get right into the video. Okay, so now we're in GT Tile Designer, and this is the file for the main part of the NBC scoreboard. It is split up into a couple of different files. We'll go over each one of them on one at a time. This is going to be the one we're going to be going over first, though. So there's kind of a lot going on here. Don't worry, I'm going to walk through every single part of it, kind of go over how everything was kind of designed. We won't go over animation much. That'll be in the next part, chapter 2. But right now we'll just go over design and we'll look at everything. So pretty much everything is built inside a GT Tile Designer besides a couple images as well as image sequences. These little swirly, I don't know what you call them, Bezier curve type like glass images are right here on either side. These are made in Photoshop. They're just images. You cannot really do Bezier curves like this inside of vMix. So we had to resort to just an image, which is fine. They're on either side. They look okay. They didn't turn out perfect, but they're there. And then we have two image sequences inside of this file. We have this little swirly one that plays on the transition out, as you can see. So the bigger one is, well, actually, I think both of them are just image sequences. Yeah, they are. So that was made in After Effects. And then also for the transition in, this little primetime football thing that comes on is also After Effects. If anyone's interested in how I did that, I can make another video in the future going over some of the other After Effects project files that kind of consist in this package that were recreated. But we'll be going over the vMix side of things today. So, let's just start in the middle. We'll start with the little circular sphere thing. I don't know what it's like technically called. The middle circle, we'll call it. Let's hide everything else. Detail Designer allows you to group things. I recommend it. Super handy. So the middle circle here. NBC made it look pretty reflective. It's meant to look, I think, like it has circular glass over it almost. And we were kind of able to replicate that effect just by layering different amounts of like circles on top and then do some stuff with gradients. So we'll start. We have a P-clock mask and a quarter mask right here. Masks are super useful. They allow, if you have them set up, you can, like, for example, if I move this outside the mask, it'll disappear. You can mask something just by going up at the top, effects, and then quarter mask. So you can put that there. We have the same thing for the bottom right here, as well as the logo up here. Then we have position right and position left. These are these little like neon things that show up depending on which team has possession. vMix actually allows you, if you go to date up here and then show visible toggle, you can then go ahead and set this to visible or non-visible inside of a script. So that's what we do. So for example, if you know the away team has possession, you hide possession right and then enable possession left, and then vice versa. And then we have the clock. This is just, you know, it has a little drop shadow with glow large right here. 57 opacity, and then has a little just gradients right here on the text to make it look all cool. Then we have, so let's actually hide all this top stuff because we don't need to see it right now. We kind of have two lines right here, circle bottom line and circle top line. These are meant to make it almost look like kind of like a highlight on there. So if we hide both of those, you can see. Then we have the circle middle, which is just this little gradient thing that shows up right here. So you see we hide that. It's meant to give some more, you know, depth to it, some more reflection. Then we have just another ellipse inside of our main ellipse that's just, you know, kind of has a little gradient, a little bit of opacity. Again, we made this by basically just looking at the circular thing and then just like trying to figure out, okay, how can we recreate this with circles? Because obviously I don't know how NBC made it. They have a really good design team, and ours is not anywhere near as perfect as theirs, but we did the best I think we can do for vMix. You could obviously go ahead and recreate it in like another program like Photoshop or something, and then import it as an image into vMix, but then you don't have full control over it, and like there's some issues with that. I like having full control over it. I think it's also a little bit more optimized to use vMix's shapes, so that's why we went with that. But yeah, then we have the P clock on the bottom, and we have a circle background. Oh, there we go. Circle background right here. That's the main background. Then we have the P clock behind it so that it can do like the little move up animation like this, and it's not invisible in front of it. And then we have the stroke black line in the middle. This is just this little black line that goes on the middle. And then we have two layers of strokes on the outside of the inner circle. So we have the first one, which is kind of just the main background, which is like black. And you can have a stroke by going here up to just under home, set the fill to transparent. And then this is the stroke right here. So we have a thickness of 7, style solid, and then the color is just a variation of gray. And the same thing for the inner one. This just gives like a highlight almost, makes it look more circular and adds more depth. And that's all the middle circle. I mean, looking at it from up close, it doesn't look the greatest. But when you go back, like here, it honestly doesn't look that bad. It's not terrible. Once you kind of know what's going on, you can kind of notice and be like, oh yeah, I see it, right? It's kind of like an illusion almost. But when you're looking at it on stream and you're not paying too terribly much attention to it, it looks pretty good. So that's the beauty of it. I would recommend, like, I think the main broadcasters and the main design companies do this as well. But you could, like, if you're doing a custom scoreboard, I would recommend designing it and animating it fully in something like After Effects. Obviously, keep it in mind that you're going to move this over to vMix and not going too crazy with the design and stuff and limiting yourself. But I would go ahead and design in After Effects. Do like try to go all out, go with the effects and stuff, and then once you go ahead and bring it over to GT Teledesigner, then you just be careful like this, and you just go kind of almost pixel by pixel, and you kind of build it up, just replicating it to the best of your ability with the tools that you have. And look what we made. It looks great. So, okay, let's move on to just the team sides. We'll go with the away team here. I'll go hide the middle circle. The away team and the home team are basically the same, just a little inverted and changed up a bit. You see we have some overlaying of the numbers. I'll get into that later, but what matters now is the away score main. So we can hide the other ones. So we have the away score main. First we have the away curve, which again is just a little image. Away timeouts, these are actually text. So I think for this case, they are dashes like this with like a special font to make them look bolder and stuff. You can actually make your own font. It's not that hard. And if you look up YouTube videos on it, it's pretty easy. So if you have like a custom shape for your timeouts or something, you could totally turn into a font. Just set one of the characters to that and then have it totally be editable, because you can go to vMix and you go to data up here, and then you can, as long as it's not checked as hidden, you can go ahead and edit it. Pretty simple. So that's what we did here. The timeouts also have like a little glow on them. It's the same as the drop shadow, just it matches the foreground to make it look like a glow. And then we have the away logo. This is actually a 3D render version of the Rams logo. You can do some really cool stuff with 3D, assuming it is pre-rendered. Like, for example, in our Fox scoreboard recreation, we had a little spinning logos for the team that were 3D. Those were image sequences, and it really sucks that you can't do any native 3D with vMix. But again, you know, we're competing up against like professional software here, and for what you get in vMix, it is honestly a pretty good bang for your buck. And obviously you're limited by the price, but you got to make do with what you have. So we have the logo there. Away name, again, it's just a normal font. Little gradients, little drop shadow, similar to the clock that we had earlier. Away score main, pretty much the same as the away name. We have a little away spacer right here, which is a rectangle. We have another rectangle to add another drop shadow to the background. The gradients is where it gets a little bit more complicated, but again, you know, if you design it somewhere else, you can kind of get pretty close to replicating it. The gradient is actually two gradients. We have one that's kind of a bottom gradient right here, which is a little bit darker, and it's actually a gradient that goes from black to fully transparent, so that we can overlay it on top of our team's color. So we have this initial gradient, which is kind of on the bottom half and is a little darker. And then we have just the one gradient that is kind of just goes from right to left. Pretty basic. And then our blank away background with a little bit of a stroke. And look at that. It looks great. It looks awesome. And then that can just be duplicated onto the home side right here. And then we put in the middle circle, and it looks great. Looks awesome. I'll go up here to inputs. We have some other inputs that the scripts actually take from and then do things on the scoreboard depending on what is put in here. You see we have away score input and home score input separate. I'll go into that later. That's a part of the ticker score change animation. But again, we have these up here. These are all invisible, but they're just text layers. And then we have the stats notification bar, which is built into it. Which has, it's pretty basic. I mean, most people could figure it out. It has a little background right here with a stroke. It has a little mask, which, you know, allows it to kind of get cut off like that. And then, yeah, that's all there is. We'll go over animations later, but this is the main scorebug. This is the main scorebug design portion of things. So now we moved over to the down and distance meters. These are actually separate, and I'll explain why later in the more technical part of things. But all you need to know right now is that they're separate. So we have two things in here. We have first the down and distance, which is right here. And then we also have a little timeout block. And I mean, this is also just super basic. To get this little curvature right here, it's actually an ellipse, which is like super stretched out, kind of like this. I'll show you. It's really weird. It's like an ellipse that's like super stretched out like this, and then the only part that's visible is this one side. Now, obviously, you could do another image again. That's always plausible, but to have full control over it, you can do it in vMix as well. So then we have some text. We have these triangles that point, a gradient that's kind of just over top of everything that's just masked. I'm pretty sure this is a radial gradient to go ahead and give it a kind of gradients on both sides and then a more brighter portion in the middle. The triangles are just normal triangles, just rotated, which you can do inside of format. Yep, format right here. You can rotate it X, Y, and Z. So for our case, it would be the Z axis that's rotated. Looks a little funky, but again, with enough time and patience, you can do it. Okay, so now we're to the end of score, kind of like score recap type graphic. I don't know what you would call it, but that's what it is. And as you'll notice right away here, we have a duplicate of the score bug. Again, we'll go into why that is in the next chapter, but for now, all you need to know is that it's there. So let's go ahead and hide that for now, since we don't really need it. This is what we're going to be dealing with. So again, I think most people could kind of figure out what's going on here. We have just a copy and paste of our kind of middle circle from right here. This is a pretty basic like rectangle. And then we have two rectangles on top that are just masked with the team logos and the score. The score is replicated using our script, so you don't have to edit two things. Again, we'll go into the code portion later. We have this little part right here. Little rectangle on the bottom. Black it out. Our little Bezier curve swirly thing again. Our highlighting thing. Basically the kind of same type thing that we did on the score bug. The separate stuff. This time though, it is a gradient and it fades from kind of gray to middle to the white to then darker gray again. And then the background is, I think, a combination of gradients. We'll go to, yeah, right here. It is just a bunch of gradients. Well, actually just two. Gradient 1, gradient 2. Again, we have like a gradient in the middle right here and then a radial gradient kind of on the side. So that's this graphic. So yeah, this is just pretty this is pretty much how everything is designed. It's pretty basic when you break it down. Obviously this took me a lot longer to figure out and to accomplish than what I'm explaining here, and it'll take some trial and error. It takes a while. You have to experiment a bit, but again, I recommend going ahead and building out your score bug in another program, something like After Effects or Photoshop, designing it there, going all out over there, and then do your best to then move it over to GT Teledesigner, and you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish. So yeah. Okay, so this chapter is going to be going over kind of the animation side of things on the score bug, how the score bug was animated, and then also some of the techniques we use to give it more advanced animation. Now, before we jump into actually exploring the animation on the score bug, I do need to explain a quick little technique that we used to pull off a couple of the animations. So typically when you want to move or animate something inside of a GT Teledesigner, you would go up to here, you go transition in, for example, and you'd select fly, and then you can pick the direction that you want to move. So for example, we'll have it move from the left, and it'll move in from out of bounds over here to then the position where the rectangle is at. So if I put it over here, it'll move in from the left, bam. And the duration is just what it takes to get from out of bounds to then our position. And the cool thing about this is you can use decimals. So if you do like 0.155, that'll work. You might need to add in the 0. I'm not sure. But look at that. It goes really fast. You can also do negative delay. Some people don't know this, but if you do 0.05, for example, let's give it something bigger so you can actually see it. So look at that. It starts when it's already in screen. So if you pair this with like duration 1, delay of negative 0.5, and play it, it'll start halfway through the animation. Another little trick there. And then also, typically when you're going to animate something to make it look better, you want to use one of the cubic easing ones, or bounce if you want bounce, I guess, but bounce is kind of weird. But cubic easing is usually what we'll use, depending on what you want. And so a combination of all these three actually gives you a lot of flexibility. And then let's just say you want this to animate out. Well, since we're doing a transition in, it's going to by default transition the object into the screen. But we can then reverse it and it'll transition it out, as you can see. But if you go to transition out, again, by default, it's going to transition out. So if you just play it like this, it'll move out. But then you can reverse it again and it'll move in. And then for the pages, I believe it is by default transition in. So then you can just reverse it to do transition out. And then these page layers right here are really useful for when you want to go ahead and just add other arbitrary animations that might get played during, for whatever reason, by scripts or something like that. Because they can, these pages can be played by scripts, but they can also be played by you by inside of vMix right-clicking on the graphic and then selecting the page animation you want to play. And they work the same as the transition in, pretty much. And then also, there are data change in and data change out. For example, if you have text right here, we put a text block and be like, hey, we can do data change in on the text block. So whenever this text is changed, first the data change in for the text block will be played, then the data change out will be played. So then we can animate something like, I don't know, maybe fly upwards like this. So it'll fly up, and then data change out, it'll fly in from here. And then we play the in and out. It'll do this animation whenever it's changed. Obviously, that looks pretty bad. But, this is all just kind of doing it and testing things out and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't. Okay, so now, as you probably noticed in the scoreboard, we had times where there was a point where the rectangle would move from one position to another position. Well, that's not really possible with what we've just explained. You can only fly in from a certain direction. You can't choose to move from one position to another. And you're completely right. In a traditional video editing software, you would be able to use something called keyframes, which then you would keyframe from one position, go forward in time, and then keyframe to another position, and then have it move in between the two. In vMix, it does not allow for any keyframing. You only have the options that they give you for transitions, as well as the timing and the direction. But you can use a little trick. What you can do here is, for example, we can have two rectangles, one on one side and one on the other side. What you can do then is you can have let's remove the transitions on these quickly. There we go. All right, so in transition in, for example, let's say we want this one to fly this direction in reverse. So we play it, it'll move that way. Let's set the duration to 1, cubic easing the in and out. And then let's have this one fly in from this direction, not reversed. Cubic easing in and out, duration 1. If you ever go a little bit faster, maybe we're a little bit. Do you see that? There's a point in the middle where the two rectangles are overlapping. So then what you could do is you could go to this second one right here and set up on transition layer 2, set a fade transition, set the duration to 0, and then the delay to like 0.5, for example. And then do the same on this one. Go to fade. Make sure this one is not reversed. This one can be reversed. Duration of 0. 0.5. And look at that. It looks like the cube is moving from one position to another. Now this is surprisingly looks really good. Most of the time you're going to have to mess with it a lot more. But it just works. And it works really well. Now there are some downsides of this. You can't really move it from like this position to like here
because like it can't really go diagonal. It kind of has to be just along one axis. You can do the same for up and down, but again, it has to be along one axis. But this really opens up the opportunity a lot. Now, again, it's kind of a pain to do, which is why another useful thing can be grouping. You know, if you have a bunch of objects like text here, for example, and then maybe a little underline below the text, and you want to move that, well, what you can do is you can just group them. Create group layer, and then you can add a transition to the group layer as well, which is allowed. So if we can do this, look at that, bam. So yeah, that is just a quick little tip that is really useful and is used a couple of times in the scoreboard to give it a non-vMix feel almost. Okay, now that we're in the actual scoreboard, we can go through some of the more animations. We'll just go over some just random ones. Most of them can kind of be figured out once you kind of know what's going on. Again, transition in, we just have the image sequence. To do image sequences, you basically just import an image and then make sure they follow the normal image sequence naming format, which I'll probably display on screen right now. And then you basically just select image sequence right here, and you select the duration. Usually the duration will be the same duration that you exported it in whatever video software you use. For us, it was After Effects. And then it'll play out. You can also do it in reverse if you want to. For example, if we reverse it, it'll play in reverse like that, but obviously we don't want that. Also, it ends up looking weird at the end because the last frame, if you want to disappear, I recommend setting the last frame to just a complete transparent, because otherwise it'll stay up, and you don't want that. And then also for the circle here, you can also pause while you're playing. The circle kind of just expands. The text just kind of fades in like that. Again, if you go to the middle circle, it just has an expand on the stroke background. Again, use decimal numbers, very useful. Stroke inner background has the same thing. All the masks have the same thing. This has nothing, that just stays there because it's a mask. It'll look fine. The P clock is hidden for this. Again, if you don't want anything, if you don't want something to show for a particular animation, you can just set it hidden. P clock text is also hidden. Circle background is expand. Circle reflections, all these are just expand. Zoom fade. This is a zoom fade. So what it'll do is it'll zoom in, but also fade in at the same time in just one. It's just kind of a combination of the both. The possessions are just fade in. Quarter is just fly in from the top. Again, it's masked out using the quarter mask, so it won't appear outside of the mask. Our logo is again fly in. We have a logo mask as well, and then P clock mask is there. But if we play, as you can see, that's how the circle comes in. Just kind of expands, moves upward, fades in. And then again, the away team and the home team is the same animation, just reversed. So we'll go over the away team. Over the group, there's nothing. Away background is just fly in from the right. The away gradients also fly in with a little bit more delay, so that they kind of appear afterwards. So you see, it moves out. There's no gradients, but the gradients slowly appear over time. Looks kind of nice. Away spacer is again fly in. Both of them are the same. The away score flies in from the right. I mean, most of this stuff is just flying in. This flies in as well. The logo flies in. Timeouts will just fade in, and the away curve does nothing. It's just there. And you can really mess with the duration stuff and the delay. And most of our stuff is cubing, easing in and out. But again, I recommend knowing the difference between the three. I'll put them on screen right now. It's not as flexible as you might want it to be. I really like the graph editor in After Effects, but you're not going to get that flexible with this. You're going to have to go with cubic easing, and it's good enough. Using some fancy duration and delay stuff, you can kind of usually get how you want it to be, but it's not perfect. Okay, and then our stats notification bar is we're just doing data change in and out on our stats title. I'll go over why we don't use pages in a bit, but again, stay data change in. We'll play. It'll show up. It'll do the two team colors right there. and then it'll go down. And again, these are really useful. I think the notification title we also use something for. This is just like a little notification with no text on the sides. We use the same bar for that. It looks okay. The peak clock is going to be page 9 and page 10. So page 9 is the take it out. Page 10 is the bring it back in. And then we use pages 1 through 8 to do the score ticker, which I will go into in highly detailed in the next chapter. Okay, so this is the fun one. This is the one where there is a lot of stuff going on. My personal favorite graphic I've made in GT Tile Designer because of how cool it is and how really it's just like, this is made in vMix? What? So well, first of all, we'll hide our duplicate of the scoreboard. You might be able to understand why we have that there, but we'll hide it. If we play the transition in, again, so first of all, what happens is we play that little same swirly. That's just an image sequence. You can see up here we have the swirly. I don't know what it's called. We named it that internally. It doesn't really matter. Swirly. Then these just kind of, these texts and logos kind of come in from the right. Let's go ahead and go down to their team scores right here, which is this, the outline. The outline is separate, so it can kind of be over top of everything. We have the home score. These just all fly in. Home spacers do nothing. They're just masked out. The home logos will also fly in, but from the other direction. As you can see, if we play it, they'll fly in from that direction. Both of them are kind of delayed. So the first one comes in, and then the second one. Way score is flying again. Way spacer does nothing. Way logo flying. The gradients don't do anything here. We have the way background and the home background separate, so that these can be changed if you have data, and then if you don't have them hidden. I believe in the new vMix version, as long as it's a solid color, you can go ahead and change it, which is why we didn't end up having the gradients on the solid color, because the gradients I don't think you can change inside of the vMix title editor within vMix. And then you'd have to go into GT Tile Designer to go ahead and change it. But if you just overlay a transparent gradient, it basically does the same thing, and it doesn't really change much besides the fact that then you can edit the color afterward in vMix really easily. And then you can also edit it with scripts then, which is awesome. So then we have that. Okay, let's go on to the score drive right here, which is fairly similar. I'm pretty sure it just expands outwards, the back. The background will just, or the mask, I'm sorry, everything is hidden by a singular mask, will kind of reveal itself from the middle on the y-axis. So if I did the x-axis, it would go ahead and reveal itself like that. But we want the y-axis. You can also do both, so it'll kind of expand like that. Something else you can do. I recommend getting familiar with all the transitions. They're all a little different. Some are similar to others, but they're all different in their own ways, and they're all can be used in various different situations. The gradients do nothing. They're just hidden by the mask. The logo does nothing. Logo spacer does nothing. Our text, I'm pretty sure, all do zoom fade besides these texts, let's do fade, which have fade and fly on them. And then again, these are just zoom fade. All this is pretty basic. The curve does nothing, and then the outline reveals itself from this direction, so it kind of looks like the stroke is coming in. If we play it. But it's not really. Okay, so let's do the fun part now, the transition out. So if you play with the scoreboard hidden, you'll see we do the same thing where the thing starts moving, but then it hides midway through. And this is so our second middle circle can take place. As you can see. Look at that. And then after the middle circle comes into play, we do these same exact transitions we did on the main scorebug, just delayed of it to match when that goes in the middle. So if we play it all, look how cool that looks. And then what will happen actually is we'll go into how this works in the script later. But what will happen is once the team scores a touchdown, our main bug on the other graphic will actually become hidden, but it won't transition out. And then what will happen is the touchdown animation will play and all that, and then after the touchdown animation, this graphic will play in like this. This will be on screen for a second. And then after this is out, it'll do the transition out, which is when it'll fade this and go back into it. And right when this is done transitioning out, this will be hidden, but then the scoreboard will reappear. So it'll be a seamless transition, and it works perfectly. It looks awesome. Let's play this in and out so you can kind of see the full thing. We do this, and then after this is done, bam. But that's that. It looks awesome. Looks super cool. We'll go into the scripting part later, but that's kind of how that works. And also, I will point out before we cut away, I believe the middle circle is animated just over the group. Yep. If you go over the group right here. I'm on transition in. I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go. It has the fade right with the 0.01. I think you actually have to do a 0.01 duration. Maybe 0. Actually, 0 should work. I don't know why we did 0.01 here, but it's fine. I'm sure they're the same. Delay of 0.9, reverse, so it hides. And then we are our flight. You see, negative 1.7, duration of 4. Again, that sounds really weird. Why am I doing a duration of 4? Well, it's something with the animation to have to get it perfect. Because remember, it comes in really slow. And then if we go to our second one, our second middle circle down here, we can see again, it does the fly in, 0.3, duration of 3. And then it hides at 1 point. And bam, it just works. All right, let's move on. Okay, our last thing is the timeouts and the main graphic. This one's pretty basic. We have the transition in, which just moves that down. Transition out, moves it back up like that. And then page 1 brings in the timeout, but then also gets rid of it so that we don't have to have a script play 2 animations to bring it in, bring it out, because it's in for the same amount of time. You could split it up. You could have it bring it in on page 1 and then bring it out on page 2. You can do whatever you want. This is just what we did. This is what we found worked best for us. And also this graphic right here, we have a different one depending on which team it's for. So this is for the away team, but we also have one for the home team. And it is just it, but again, inverted, so it matches. It is kind of a pain to work with different files because if you make a change in one, you have to make a change in all of them. But usually, I would recommend if you're going to start working with multiple files, make sure you get the scoreboard perfect, or at least to a point where you won't have to change it much, and then make those changes over. All right, welcome to Chapter 3. This chapter is going to require some of the previous techniques from Chapter 2. At least the first 10 minutes of Chapter 2, I recommend you watch if you skipped it at all, because those concepts at the beginning will be very useful, actually mandatory here, to be able to understand what is even going on in the first place. So this is the animation that, honestly, I am probably most proud of. It's really cool, and it looks great. I haven't seen it done before in vMix. Obviously, I've seen it done in traditional graphics, especially the NBC board, and I thought of trying to do it before in a different scoreboard, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. But this is, I think, the best way to do it. So let's just kind of break it down first. Let's think about it first. So if you want to do a score change kicker type animation, right? There's 3 different things that you have. You have the initial number. So this is the team score before it changes. So let's just say it's going to go from 0 to 6, right? The team scores a touchdown. So the initial number will be 0. And then you have the final number, which is what it's changing to. So if they score a touchdown and it's for 0, the second number will be a 6, right? Because that's what it's changing to. It's going from a 0 to a 6. And now the third part is all the numbers in between. So you'd have 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? Well, what if we break the animation into 3 separate pieces of text? You have the initial text, which is the one that moves up and leaves the scoreboard. Then you have a piece of text that is all the numbers in between that moves along with it, and it looks like it's a part of it, right? It moves up along with it. And then you have the final number, which is the final result. And that moves and takes the place of the first one, where the first one had initially left. Now, it's kind of complicated. I'm going to have a visual graphic up that might make it make more sense, I hope. But I'm going to show it off here. Okay, so because of how limited vMix is, you can't make it for every possible combination. So, like, I can't make it go from, like, 0 to, like, 26. I mean, you technically could, but, like, you have to limit yourself because you're limited to the page animations to be able to do this, okay? Technically, you can have a workaround by doing data change in on, like, a bunch of different other ones if you wanted to. We limited ourselves to just the page animations to simplify it and make it less complicated than it already was. So we used page 9 and 10 for the ticker in and ticker out, as you can see here. So we were limited to 8 total page animations, 4 for each team, right? Because remember, there's 2 teams. So we resulted in having page animation for an increase of 1, an increase of 2, an increase of 3, and an increase of 6. So this covered all the score increases for football, right? Because you can get a 1 would be extra point, 2 would be 2-point conversion, 3 would be a field goal, and a 6 would be a touchdown, okay? So what we did here now is we then timed it up for each and every one. So page animation 1 would correspond to the away team scoring 1 point. So we would ignore the third number because going from 1 to 2, for example, there's no numbers in between. So you can see if we play this, that is 2 different numbers. It's using, and to actually see this in action, we have home score, or we have away score main, which is the one that's always visible, away score mid, which is the middle numbers, and away score end, which is the final number. So in this case, you can see that away score main has a fly up, away score mid has nothing, and by default it is off screen, so it's invisible, and I'll explain why in a second. And away score end is also fly in. Remember, a main score mid is fly up reverse, away score end is fly in, and it has and if you play it, it looks perfect. Obviously, you're going to have to do some timing with the duration and the delay and all that stuff. We went into that before, but that's how that works. Okay, let's move on to page 2, which is going to be an increase of 2. So now we will be using the middle numbers because there is going to be one number in the middle. So again, if we play it, 0, 1. Oh, okay. So, okay. Keep in mind, it looks a little weird there because the end, or the middle numbers, needs to have the number of lines that you expect to have. So if we hide it, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 middle ones. So let's change this to only have 1 middle number, right? So that our change to 1 works. Let's put it back there. And if we play it, look at that. Perfect. You kind of see what we're doing now? Let's go to page 3. This is an increase of 3. So first, let's go to our middle numbers. We'll go ahead and unmask it. We'll change it to have 2 numbers in the middle. Hide it. And then play it. Oh, wait. I didn't mean to hide it. I'm sorry. I meant to go ahead and mask it. There we go. And now we play it. I'm doing the wrong one. Sorry. Page 3. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Bam. Right there. And then finally, page 4, which is a touchdown, which is 6 numbers. So we can go to here. Unhide this. Because we're doing 6 numbers, we'll have to put in 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put it on the mask again. Play. Bam. So in the background, right, we have a script that's doing this all automatically. Trying to do this manually would be a nightmare. And it would take like 30 seconds for you to even do the score up animation. So I wouldn't even try doing that. We have a script that is doing this all automatically. I will go into that script in the next chapter. You'll see all the source code. I'll walk through it. And then I'll also, there is a GitHub down below with all the scripts that you can use yourself. You can modify for your own scoreboard if you plan on doing this. Also, leave a comment if you plan on doing this. I would love to hear about it. If you have any questions, again, leave a comment. I will be answering them. This is like something that took me a while to think of. I think I even went on the vMix forums at one point asking like, is this possible? And just getting the answer like, no, it's not. And kind of being frustrated. And then I came up with this. Okay, so the reason why the away score mid is off screen is because we are sliding it upwards. And I will give a demonstration of this. So basically what's happening, right, is during the animation, we have it fly up to its position. And what it'll look like is it'll just go like this. It'll move up and all the numbers will go past it. And so that's why you have to have a different page animation for every single score increase, because the timings are going to be different. The final number, the away score end, is going to come in later depending on how many numbers there are. So for most sports, this would you would probably be able to pull this off. For basketball, I mean, there's an increase of 1, 2, and 3. So you could easily do that, right? That's even easier than football. Soccer or football in Europe is, I'm pretty sure, only ever an increase of 1. So you won't even need to do this. And then American football, 99% of the time, it's going to be doing something like this unless the score is changed manually for some reason. But yeah, this is how you do it. It's honestly not as complicated as you might think. It's really cool. It looks great. Obviously, this took us a while to figure out how to do. It took me a while to figure out how to do, but I think it was worth it. And I'm glad to be able to share this with the world now, and other people are going to be able to put this in their scoreboards. And maybe you could come up with something like something different. Maybe it can scroll horizontally rather than vertically. I don't know. I think the window of opportunities is so much greater when you have, when you almost limit yourself. As much as I would like to use something like ROS Video Expression or VizRT. By the way, if a ROS representative wants to give me a license key, I would be more than happy to. But back to my point. I think using a limited software like this forces you to be creative and come up with creative solutions. And I think that's what we did just here. So if you have any more questions, leave them down below. This chapter was a lot shorter than the other ones, and I hope I didn't gloss over anything or explained it badly. Hey, as I made in this video, I did actually forget to provide some context. This is also the reason why we use those input layers that I explained back in chapter 1. Because you're not directly modifying the away score main ever, right? That is only getting modified by the script, but you still need an input to be able to input the score. So we use those hidden text inputs above so that the script can then read those, and then depending on what those values are, it can go ahead and change the other values. So just a little piece of context there. Okay, so welcome to the final chapter. This is going to be covering the scripts as well as the overall setup of how the scoreboard kind of works inside of vMix. It's a bit complicated. This is also kind of the preset we were using at the time. There is a lot of missing files and stuff from other scoreboards. I just pulled this up, haven't really edited much. So there's a lot of stuff that used to work, but is either the files are missing or is not really used anymore. But anyways, that really doesn't matter. The scoreboard is here. So, okay, how it works is, so we have everything imported. We have the main scoreboard. Obviously, we have the away yardage, home yardage. These timeouts and flags are for a different scoreboard as well as the player stats. Then we have the away touchdown stats graphic, the away touchdown graphic, which is just like the actual touchdown thing. I couldn't find the NBC ones we were using, at least rendered. I have the project file, but I don't really want to go into it and render it out. So this will work. It'll be a little mistimed, but you get the point. Home touchdown stat graphic as well as the home touchdown graphic. That's pretty much everything you need. All this other stuff is just miscellaneous, stat graphics that come on, or just other things not related to the scoreboard. And then we have a scorebug main kind of input right here. So this is just a blank input. If you go down to add input and then you go to color and transparent, you can add a blank input, right? And then once we go into the settings of this input, under multi-view, we have a couple of things going on. We have the away yardage right here, right? And you can see that the away yardage is currently on, home yardage is currently off. This is automatically set up by the script, okay? Player stats, this is another little part of this scorebug that we didn't cover, but I can't find the files. I think they're missing. The main scoreboard itself, the timeouts, the flags, these are missing as well. But then we also have the away touchdown stats graphic and the home touchdown stats graphic. And so the reason we have it under this transparent input is, as I explained back in chapter 2 when we were covering how the this graphic works right here, this one, how it transitions back into the scoreboard. This is how we quickly disable and enable the scoreboard without having to bring it off and back on. So if we didn't do this, whenever we would try to take the scoreboard off of the screen, like hide it, we would have to play the transition out animation, which we don't want to do. So this is just a really easy and quick way to just take it off without any delay. There might be a better alternative. I am not sure. This is just what we used. So yeah, that's kind of the setup. We have everything under this main thing. The scripts control the multi-view, and when you want to bring the scoreboard on, you'll never actually use these numbers to put it on the screen, because vMix has these 4 overlay channels. We might have some other graphics on the overlay channels, but for the scorebugs, we will never directly click one of these to put it on screen. And the reason why is we have scripts that will do it for us, because the scripts need to run some code to make sure that the scorebug is all set up properly to be able to display it on screen. So for debug purposes, I'm going to add a quick color bars to the background so that we can just view that. And then let's go up to settings up here. And once you go to settings, there will be a little scripting menu, and this is where you can add all your scripts. So I'll be viewing the scripts from this menu, but on screen will be a custom little fancy code view thing with syntax highlighting, so it'll be easier for you to view. So we'll just go through all these scripts one by one, and then afterwards I'll show you them all together just working. So first we have our show script. At the top we declare some variables, just as like the scorebug name, the scorebug input, the away yardage, the home yardage, all that stuff. Then we go in and access the text in our main scorebug graphic to see which team has possession. Now, as you can see, we get the home team twice for some reason. I'm not sure why we added 2 separate inputs for the home team. There must have been a reason, but from what I'm thinking, in most cases you would only need to have one. And then basically what we do is later on we'll check if a specific input, because how we did, we were obviously streaming esports, and we were exporting a certain symbol what if the home team had possession of the ball. And the symbol was like a little bulletin point circle. So what we were checking to see if either one of the home team possession strings had that circle in it. If it did, then we knew the home team had possession. Otherwise, the away team had possession. For you could do something else. You could have like an input that was like that says like does home team have possession, and then it can either be true or false, and then you could check true or false, right? This is just what we did. You can change it up. Basically, it's just checking if a certain character is there, and if it is, then the home team has possession. So after we get the text in our 2 home team possession inputs, again, I don't know why we have 2, but after we do that, we'll go ahead and configure some multi-view stuff. We'll turn off layers 1, 2, 7, and 8. So those correspond to the multi-view layers. Then we'll just wait 100 milliseconds. We'll go ahead and turn the overlay input 1 channel on the compiled scoreboard. So the compiled scoreboard is the scoreboard with all the multi-view stuff where everything is like combined. It's the transparent layer. So we'll go ahead and put that on channel 1. Then we'll go ahead and turn our multi-view layer on of channel 4. So that is, the multi-view. So this would be the normal scorebug. We'll turn it on channel 4. Then we'll wait 500 milliseconds because we're waiting for the animation to play out, because once we put the multi-view on, then the in animation is going to play on our main scoreboard, and that takes 500 milliseconds. Then after that, we'll go ahead and enable the possession glow in the middle circle, depending on which team had possession earlier when we checked. And that's all the show script does. I mean, it's a lot, but it is it's fairly basic. The hide script is even easier. all it does is it checks if the if either the home team has possession. If it does, it'll then transition out the home yardage layer, because remember, we have those separated. Or if the home team doesn't have possession, it'll transition out the away yardage, because we're assuming that's on screen. And it's going to be on screen no matter what, in our case, unless you're transitioning out, of course. Then after that, we'll wait 500 milliseconds for that animation to play. Then we'll go ahead and do the score bug transition out. We'll wait 200 milliseconds because that one takes 200 milliseconds. And then afterwards, we'll turn off the overlay input 1 of our compiled score bug. So that's no longer on our overlay input channel 1. Okay, so now let's go to our touchdown script. So this is the script that gets played whenever, we want to play our touchdown graphic. Okay, so for our touchdown graphic, the little touchdown animation that plays whenever a team does score a touchdown is always going to be on overlay input channel 2 for us. So we go ahead and first turn that overlay input off to make sure there's not already the animation up there for some weird reason. This is just like a safety thing to make sure nothing gets messed up. And then directly afterwards, we don't even wait. We just turn it back on. And then we turn the away touchdown graphic on. Obviously, if you're doing the home one, it would say home instead of away. The scripts are identical besides home is replaced with away. Or away is replaced with home because we're viewing the away. Then we'll wait 250 milliseconds for that to come on. Then we turn off the score bug and the away yardage on our compiled score bug layer. Then we'll wait 10,000 milliseconds or 10 seconds for that touchdown graphic to play. Then we'll go ahead and do the transition in for the away touchdown stats graphic, which is the one that shows the kind of end of drive stats. We'll wait 700 milliseconds or 7 seconds for that to finish. Then we'll go ahead and transition it out. Now we'll wait 3,000 milliseconds because the transition out takes exactly 3,000 milliseconds. Once that's done, we'll go ahead and turn on our main scoreboard and at the same time turn off this one. And when we do that, it'll just look seamless. Like they just transition perfectly. There will be no cut. You won't even see it. And then we'll do the same thing we did when we turn on the scoreboard. We'll check who has possession, and then whoever does, we'll turn on their possession dot as well as their yardage graphic. Okay, then we also have a P-Clock Manager script, which is always running in the background. So the last few, you would want to hook those scripts up to like a Stream Deck key or like some other shortcut. So whenever you click that shortcut, then it plays the script. But on this one, and all the rest of the scripts that we're going to go through, these are running in the background the whole time you're broadcasting. So the P-Clock one is in charge of showing the little P-Clock thing that comes down below the middle circle whenever it gets below the number 10. Because we only want that visible when it is P-Clock number less than 10. So all we do is first we go ahead and we make a loop using do. We go ahead and get the new value from the scorebug.text and then P-Clock text. And above this, we also declare a count, whether the animation is currently ongoing. That's a Boolean. We have the old value, which is a string, and we set it to 0 by default. And then we also have new value. So then after getting the new value, we go ahead and check if the new value is equal to the old value. And if it's not, we go ahead and continue. Then we go ahead and get the new value as an integer using the integer.parse function. If this fails, the whole script will stop, which is kind of bad. For our case, this didn't matter because we were exporting the data directly from the game, and it was impossible for it to not be an integer. But if you're inputting manually, I recommend surrounding this in some like try-catch block so that if it does fail, your entire script doesn't fail and stops. After we get it as an integer, we check if it's less than or equal to 10. If it is, we continue. If it's less than or equal to 10, we'll set the old value to the new value, we'll set our count to 0, and then we'll check if the animation is currently ongoing. If it's not, we'll go ahead and set that ongoing animation value to true, go ahead and enable the page 9, which remember is the animation that comes down. and then we'll go ahead and yeah, we'll just play it. So that'll take all that entire code block that we just went through will run every 500 milliseconds. Now let's jump back up to here. If it is currently ongoing, the animation, we'll go ahead and increase our count number by 1. And we'll wait until our count number is equal to 8. And basically that just makes it so that we can't have the peak clock thing go down and then go up again within 4 seconds. So it has to be at least 4 seconds before it goes up again. This is just to make it not look all weird and have it be going up and down constantly if there is a situation where it accidentally, the peak clock accidentally goes below 10 and then gets updated instantly. It needs to stay down there for a minimum amount of time just so that it doesn't look weird. And I'll show you that in a second. If the count is equal to 8, then we set the count to 0, turn off ongoing animation to false, and then go ahead and play the animation for it to go up again. And then all that is in a loop with sleep 500 on the bottom so that it runs every 500 milliseconds. So it's a little complicated. I'll show it off after we are finished going through all the scripts. So you can jump to that if you want. Okay, so now we have our score change manager. This is in charge of checking for a score change and then playing the correct page animation, as well as inputting the numbers in between so that the ticker, the score change ticker animation works properly. So again, we set our variables at the top. We set an old away score and an old home score. The first thing we do is we get the new away score and the new home score, just the text. We convert both of them to an integer. Again, I would recommend surrounding that in a try-catch block just in case they fail. In our case, again, ours is getting export from the game. It's not going to fail, so it didn't really matter. We first check if the old away score is equal to the new away score. And if it's not, we go ahead and figure out the difference in between. And we can just do this by minusing the new away score minus the old away score. So if the new away score is 7 and the old away score is 1, we'll get 6. So then we set the old away score to the new away score. We check if the number difference is equal to 1, right? So this is if it goes from like 0 to 1. The number difference will be 1. And then we go ahead and do all of our stuff in the middle. We go ahead and first we set the away score main text to the old number. We set the away score end text to the new number. Because number difference of 1 doesn't use the text in between, we don't need to set that. And then we play our page 1 animation, which is the away team score increased by 1. We sleep 3000, and then we'll set the away score main text to the new number so that once it's done with the transition, it'll be back to the new updated value. And then we just repeat that for number difference of 2, 3, and 6. But we do change the one thing. We do need to set the numbers in between. And I ended up hard coding this to basically just do, as you can see, we do for away score difference of 2, or let's do away score difference of 3. For away score difference of 3, we basically set the value to a new away score number minus 2, right? Because it's 3. So minus 2 would be the first new number. And then we do environment.newLine. So environment.newLine is going to force it to go to a new line. So go 1 down. And this is just the Visual Basic environment variable for that new line character. And then so the end symbol will basically concat the strings together and like combine them. So then we'll do and new away score minus 1, and those will get our 2 numbers in between. You could write a function to dynamically get this. For our case, it doesn't really matter since we're only doing this for 3 possible times, and it's pretty easy to hard code. You can do whatever you want. So that's how the away score is. And then also, if everything fails at the end, if we can't find a number difference of 1, 2, 3, or 6, then we just set the away main score text and the away end score text to just the new number. Because there's might be cases where like maybe a touchdown wasn't like legal, so they had to take away 6 points from a team. We don't want to play any animation for that. We just want to update it. So that's that for the away score. And then the same things for the home score, except we just changed the page numbers. We just change the variables we're checking. It's basically the same. And then remember, all this is in a loop, and it all repeats every 1,000 milliseconds. You could have this do more often. You could have it do less often. 1,000 was good for us. Okay, and finally, we have our possession controller. This is pretty basic. All it does is it first gets the gets our possession, home possession text again. It checks if it's equal to that bulletin point character. If it is, we'll go ahead and set this current possession to that character. Then we'll check if current possession is equal to old possession. If it's not, if current possession is equal to the circle, which means the home team currently has possession, we just go ahead and turn off the possession left. What I did is I wanted to animate it so that it turns off and on a couple times, like it's almost flickering. So we turn it off first, then we wait 50 milliseconds. We turn it on, we wait 50 milliseconds, and then we turn it off again. Then we wait 250 milliseconds, and then we turn the other one on. But we also turn the multi-view layer 2 on so that the home team yardage graphic then pops down. And then we do some other stuff where we go ahead and enable the possession images on the away touchdown stats graphic as well as the home touchdown stats graphic. This is just so that they update it, they match, the main score bug. And I'll also point out that the home touchdown stats graphic and the away touchdown stats graphic, for us, we were using a CSV file that had all of our data in it. So our score bug was hooked up to that CSV file. And along with that, our home touchdown stats graphic was also hooked up to that CSV file for the clock and the team scores and stuff, so that those would match. If you're doing everything manually, you might have to make a script to make those update frequently, so that they don't, when you play that graphic and then it transitions back into the scoreboard after playing it, the numbers aren't off or something like that. So that might be something you have to do. For us, it wasn't a problem because, again, we were reading from a file, so we only needed to update the stuff that was dynamically being input by a script. For example, like the possession little circle neon thing that was around the middle. And again, all this is wrapped in a loop, repeating every 1,000 milliseconds. We have an else statement in case if it's not the home team that has possession, and if it's not the home team, then we do basically the inverse of what we just did. Very similar. And we turn off the multi-view for layer 2 or 1 at the end of everything, and we set the old possession to the current possession, so it's all updated. That's all. It's a lot. I probably went through it fast. Remember, these scripts are going to be down in the description. You can view them on GitHub. I recommend viewing them. This is using Visual Basic. I'm personally not a big fan of Visual Basic. It's not the greatest programming language, but you got to do what you got to do when you're dealing with vMix, I guess. I recommend looking up some tutorials for Visual Basic, or maybe just staring at it and just trying to figure out what it does by yourself. Maybe in the future I could do a more detailed explanation of everything. But I think this will suffice for now. But let's actually show it off. Let's show it off, and you can see what it does. So we're back in vMix here, and I'll just run these scripts one by one. First of all, let's go ahead and turn on our P-Clock Manager, our Score Change Manager, and our Possession Change Manager. And you can see it kind of update here. The scores update as well. Let's go ahead and run the show script, and we'll view in our live feed right here. And you'll see this will turn on. Now, it does go black. The reason for this is because we don't have all of the graphics in, so it tried turning on the player stats right here. We don't want that, so we'll turn that off, and we're back to our transparent view. You can see the yardage automatically turned on, everything turned on. We can go back to scripting, and then we can hide the scoreboard as well, and you'll see it'll hide, it'll do everything. Looks great. We'll show it one more time. This time it did not turn the stats graphic on. I don't know why it didn't do it this time. Maybe it was already on before, but it's fine. So let's just do some demos. I'm going to turn up Notepad here because I'm going to need to copy and paste some text. Okay, so we'll go to edit our scoreboard. We'll go to title editor. Again, you can see all the page animations right here as I was explained before. But remember, our script does that. We don't have to deal with that. We have some other inputs for our time possession. These stats are automatically put in at our away touchdown stats graphic, not by a script, but remember, it's reading from the same file. We just put it in here as well for some stats reasons that we had before. But we don't have to worry about that. We have quarter and stuff, so like we can edit this if we want. No animation is going to play. Clock again can just be animated. No animation is going to play. But the P clock here, okay, well, let's say it goes below 30. It's going to go to 9. Look at that. It turns on. 8, 7, and then now we'll copy and paste 15, and we'll put 15 in there. And after 4 seconds, it should go away. Bam. Look at that. Awesome. Go back to 5, for example. 3, 2, 15. After 4 seconds, it goes away. It's working perfectly. Also, our home timeouts are just 2 underscores back to back. Again, like I explained before, you can make this whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. Here's our away score main and all that stuff. But let's go to our score input, and we'll go put in a new score. So yeah, home score input. Let's do away score input. Let's just set this to 0. So as you can see, it just updates by itself. But let's change it to 2 now. Look at that. It just works. Let's change it to 5. Okay, awesome. 5 plus 6 is 11. Let's change it to 11. Look at that. Same thing for away home score. If we set it to 0, we set it to 6. Goes up, set it back to 3. It'll update, set it back to 6 again. Set it to 7. There you go. Okay, let's go ahead and play our little touchdown thing. Let's say the away team gets a touchdown. I'm going to open up my scripts menu. Since I do not have a this like a stream deck right now, let's play the touchdown for the away team. You would normally have 2 scripts. I set this up quickly just for the tutorial, so I only have 1. But let's play it. So we have our random touchdown graphic play that I did before. It's probably not going to match the length, so it might be a little bit too long or something. Anyways, there's some downtime. Usually our animation is a bit longer. But look, it comes on. It would show the plays, yards, time possession, as well as the scores and all that. And then it transitions out, and bam. So you can see right there when it updates. Normally you wouldn't notice that at all because the scores would match and everything would match because, remember, it's reading from the same file. In our case, we're just manually updating it, so they're not going to match, but they would usually match. Let's try out the possession dot now. Team possession. Okay, so I got that bulletin point copy and pasted. We'll go back to our main scoreboard. We'll go down to the possession, and we'll put 1 in. And look at that. It transitions over. Let's remove it. And it does the little, like, flashy little animation thing as well that I told you about. There you go. It's awesome. It just works perfectly. We'll play it again. For some reason, the away yardage aren't turned on. I think I accidentally got them out of sync because I'm not updating both of these. Again, our script would update both of them. You might want to edit your script so that it only has 1. But for our case, for some reason, we had to have 2. I don't exactly remember why. But anyways, it still works, and we can still show it off right here. It's just not coming on. Maybe if I reload them, it'll work. Yes. Okay, there we go. Cool. So yeah, that's basically everything that has to do with scripting on the vMix side at least. We had some other scripts going to export our stuff from Roblox to vMix, but that stuff doesn't really matter. It's more about like getting into the right format, like CSV format and stuff. But you can input your data however you want. It doesn't really matter. You can change these scripts to as much as you want to match your production and whatever you do. Alright, so that's basically everything that has to do with our recreated NBC Sunday Night Football score bug all inside of vMix. If you guys got any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. I'll be trying to reply to as many as I can. Maybe we'll make a follow-up video if there's enough questions and I feel like something need to be answered. If anyone wants to see like some other cool stuff that we've done, leave a like, leave also a comment. I'm hoping to maybe make some more videos in the future. If anyone's interested in seeing how the After Effects side of things was done, I could also do that.
feel free to leave a like or subscribe if you enjoyed this. This video took a while to make, to narrate over, to edit, and even including the time it took to come up with all these ideas and to actually make this board in general, took forever. I would love to be able to share this, but I don't honestly think I legally can. I'm not sure, like, if I'd be violating some NBC copyright infringement thing. So, NBC, if you're watching, this is all recreation. This is all parody. I'm not sharing any of these files with anyone. This is just the core concepts of kind of how things were done, and we're sharing how things were done in vMix. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.